In this chapter, we are going to see how to interact with different types of inputs in Selenium. For example, if you know that in web page, of course, there will be input. For example, if you're going to interact with the email field or the password, that is also input type, right? So we have built this website called letcode.in. So just to understand better, like what are the components of HTML elements can be there, right? So if I go to the let's go, and here you can see that we have something like letcode.in/edit. So I'm going to take this URL, and here you can see that it has already the task like enter your name, append a text, what is inside the text box, and few other stuff, right? So we are going to take this page and we are going to try to solve all the test cases here. So you can consider one step as a one test case here. Okay, so let's go and start. So first I have to copy the URL, and here I'm going to say driver dot get, and then I'm going to paste the URL, right? And let's go and inspect. So I believe already you know how to inspect elements and how to take the locators or the XPath. If you haven't watched the XPath video yet, I will recommend you to watch the XPath. But in my case, I'm going to use the let XPath, so it will just save few times. So that's okay, I believe. Okay, so if I go and inspect this one, you can see we got XPath of 5 and CSS of 4. So I'm going to use this ID because ID is first preferences. So we're going to click on that. And here I'm going to say driver dot find element by ID, and I'm going to pass the ID value, and I'm going to say dot send case and then some data. So I'm going to pass my full name here, that is Koushik Chatterjee. Okay, let me maximize this. So you can use Control M to maximize this screen. Okay, and that's it. So we have done with our first one. Now let's go and see what we have to do. So here it says that append a text and press the keyboard tab. So we are going to see how to press a tab. I mean, I'm going to how to, yeah, we are going to see how to append a text. Append a text in the sense nothing there. It's very simple. We can use the in case functions that will default will do the append. For example, let me inspect this one. So here you can see that we have an ID called the join. So I'm going to take that one, and here let me write some comment maybe just for your understanding. So this is like your TC0001 and this is like your TC002. Okay, so next we are going to perform driver dot find element by ID, and we are going to pass the ID value, and then we are going to say send case, and then I'm going to say I'm a good, I'll just say YouTuber, maybe just do let me know in the comments. Okay, and then what we are going to do, we are going to press a keyboard tab. So how to handle the keyboard tabs action or control actions in Selenium is very simple. We can do within the send case itself. So if you mouse over, you can see that it is basically accepting character sequence. That means we can pass like array kind of values. For example, here I can say comma, and then I can say keys, and if you give control space, that will ask you to do the import. Click enter. So here you can see that we got the import statement here. Okay, and then I'm going to say keys dot tab. So you can see that we have plenty of actions, like we have alt left, not alt left, arrow left, arrow right, all the functions. So whatever the keys you have within your keyboard, you will be able to see here as well. In our case, it should be keyboard dot tab. So I'm going to use keys dot tab. Okay, now let us try to run this and check whether the keyboard tab is working. So how do you identify? We can do it in few ways. As of now, we'll just check it visually. That means I'm going to execute and check visually, right? So if I click on the tab, you can see that it is getting selected here, right? So it is going to get selected here. So let us see, right? So I'm going to right click and run as Java application. Okay, so it loaded the URL and it typed the Koushik Chatterjee, and here you can see that it appended as well as it tabbed. That is why it got highlighted, right? So as soon as I clicked, it's the highlighter, it's missing, but you have noticed it is like this one, right? So in this way, we can confirm that keyboard tab is working. Just in case if you want to check that programmatically, let's see how to do that. Okay, so first thing, we have entered the tab. That means my default focus will be within this particular what do you call that particular element, right? Now what they are asking is what is inside the text box. So we have to get the text from the text box. Let me inspect this. Okay, so if you inspect this, you can see that value equal to authentic AC. So if I change something here, it is going to change over there as well. So whatever there within the text box is basically within this attribute. Okay, so this is known as attribute and this is known as attribute value. Okay, so I have to retrieve the attribute value of the attribute that name is value, right? Let's see that. So already we know that we are on this particular element, so we are not going to find this element, rather we are going to use the concept called active element. Let me show you. So here I'm going to use driver dot switch to. Okay, so switch to is another function, so I'm going to say switch to dot active element, and then I'm going to use the get attribute function to get the or to retrieve the value from there. So I want to get the value of the value attribute. I know I'm saying too much of value, but one is attribute, another one is attribute value. Okay, so we have to retrieve the value from this particular value, or I can say we have to retrieve the text from this particular value. Okay, and that's going to return me the string, so I'm going to store it here. So you can see it suggested the name as attribute. That's fine, so we'll just use the sysout statement and we'll just print it out. That's it, very simple, right? So what is the syntax we have used here? Is very simple. A driver dot switch to, and then we have this active element. That means wherever my focus is currently, there it will consider as a element. Okay, from the element we are trying to use the function called get attribute, and then that's going to be stored in a value, I mean in a variable called attribute, and we are going to print that. Let's run and check. And it says that do you want to save. So sometimes if you don't save and if you try to run, it will show you like save and launch. You can just click on this always save resource and before launching, and click on the OK. That means whenever we try to execute, it will save the script and then it will run. Watch carefully. So the focus is on the particular text box autoning KC. Now if I go and here you can see the BT, we got the element. So even without finding the element, of course we can handle that based on the active element. Now active element will work only if the mouse cursor is highlighting over there, or else it won't work. Okay, so for example, if you go to facebook.com, let me show you. Now here you can see that as soon as I go to this website, the icon, right, that mouse icon is within that text box. So in this case I can use the active element. Okay, now let's move to the next one, and the next test case is going to be clear the text. So already we have a text, we have to clear this, right? So let's go and inspect this guy, and it has a id called clear me. I'm just going to copy that one, and this is my tc 003, just as some random number I am giving. It is not like exactly the same way we have to follow. Just to make sure we are going to look the code, you are going to look the code and you are going to understand this one. Okay, let's have some spaces. Yeah, driver dot, and of course the find element by id, and then we are going to use something called id value, that is this one, and then I'm going to say use the function called clear. So clear in the sense it will clear all the text box values. Okay, if you want to confirm like whether it's cleared or not, if you want to confirm, very easy, you can use the get attribute. You get the value of this and you check whether the length is 0. If the length is 0, then of course it's cleared, right? That's it, very simple. Okay, now let's go back and use this one. So here you have to say like confirm edit field is disabled. Disabled in the sense we cannot type anything, right? So how does it works? Let us understand in the HTML way. So here you can see that it is a input, and here we have a attribute called disabled. That means of course we cannot type. So just in case if I remove this, and then you can see we can type something, right? So that is how it works in the HTML. Now let's see how to find that with the help of Selenium. So here you can see we have an ID called no edit, and I'm going to copy paste. So driver dot find element by ID and the ID value, and then I'm going to say is enabled. So is enabled in the sense it will return true, that means we can interact. If it's going to return false, that means we cannot interact. Okay, so let me store that in a variable called enabled, and I'm going to just give the sysout. Okay, not this one, sorry for that. So sysout, and then I'm going to say enable. Okay, And the last one here, it says that the text is only read only. That means read only in the sense, of course, we cannot write anything. So I'm trying to type something, but that is not possible. How that is works, basically we have something called read only attribute here. So that is the reason it's read only. Okay, so in Selenium, how to do that is very simple. We have to use the get attribute. So like here we are using is enabled, right? So similarly, for read only, we do not have any direct functions. We can use the get attribute. Let me show you that. So driver dot find element by id, some id, and then we are going to use get attribute, and the attribute name is basically read only. So if it's read only, it will return true or false like that. Okay, or else it will return null. Okay, so let's go and store it something like attribute 2, or I can say like is read only. Okay, and then we'll try to sys out it. Okay, that's it, very simple. And of course we have to find the id, so don't try to use the id value here. Now let's go and run. And after that, I also want to save my memory, so I will just use the function called quick. Okay, now let's go and run this up. Before that, let me close the existing one. And here you can see in the last one we got like true. That means, of course, it is read only. And here we got false because we cannot do the interaction, right? So here the boolean type we got false because it is not interactable, and here read only comes like true because it is read only. If you are getting like null or false, then it is not your read only. Okay, read only in the sense like whatever the attribute we are trying to get. Okay, that's it. Okay, so I hope this makes sense to you, and you have learned all the types, probably maximum types that we can handle with the Selenium. Okay, apart from input, also we have like text area. That is also same concept. So whatever we have performed here, the same concept here. Okay, now based on this, let's try to create a tiny framework. No, I'm not kidding. We can create still. So we have learned few things, like we have learned like how to enter, how to clear and type. So what are the functions there we can build as a reusable function, right? So framework is nothing but a reusable function. So for example, let's say that we want to clear and type. So we know how to clear, we know the functions how to clear, or also how to type, right? So based on that, we can write some functions, right? So here within the main package, so currently we are on the chapter 5. I'm going to create another folder, I mean another package, technically same, and I'm going to say like a Selenium base. Okay, so that should be in the lowercase, so just name it like base, and within that I'm going to create a class called Selenium base. Okay, and then we are going to declare some drivers, right? So I'm going to say, as of now, I'm going to say Chrome driver, and I'm going to say driver. Okay, and then I'm going to write few of the functions. For example, based on the input, let's take the same, right? So based on the input, let's take the same. So what are the operations we are doing is we are trying to enter something, right? That means I need a function to type something, right? And then here we can do like, we can specify the key actions type, right? What are the keys we can do? We can do the tab, we can do the control, we can do the shift. So I can take that as well. And then you can see we are going to get the text. That means we are going to get the value, we are going to clear the text and confirm. We have some validations, right? We are going to perform that as well. So what are the functions we have learned in Selenium, we are going to convert that as a utility function, or also I can say framework, or also I can say like a reusable function. Is that interesting? Definitely it is. Let us see. Okay, so don't worry, we are not going to add a lot of things like the reports, the loggers, the data driven approach of thing. We are just going to create simple functions. Why I'm doing in this way, in the sense, uh, so when you learn a topic, you just also learn how to build the framework. That will definitely help you. Okay, let's go and do that. So I'm going to create a public functions because it's based in the sense, of course, I have to use it in any package, any folder, any classes, right? So of course it will be in the public. And what does it going to return? Nothing. So I'm just going to make it as void. Okay, the first function I'm going to type. Okay, so I make like type. So what is type? Type is basically the send case function in Selenium, right? That's it. So we are giving our own name here as a type. Now where I have to type, of course I can type in any of the web element, correct? So I will just receive that as an argument here. So web element, and I'll just name this like a element. Okay, and what we are going to type, we are going to type something that is going to be of course of string, right? So string, and I'm going to say text. Okay, now let's write the code for it. So I'm going to say element dot send keys, and what is the text we are going to receive, we are going to pass it. That's it, very simple. Now just in case if you are interested on the logger or the reports, we'll write sysout as of now. Maybe we'll change that in the later on stages. Okay, so I'm going to say sysout. um, okay, instead of sysout, what we can do is we can say something like log, and then we can print the text. Okay, and for example, let me show you. So I'm going to say public void log, and then I'm going to say string um, message. Okay, I'm going to say message. Okay, and within this we are going to write the sysout statement. Why we are doing like this? Very simple. I will call this function now here. Okay, I will just call this function here now, and later on stages I can just go and change this behavior of the functions. That means instead of sysout, I can just bring up my extend report, or any of the reporters, array report or log or anything, right? So I no need to change that time the everything. Instead of that, I can just change the change within the function. That is pretty much enough, right? So I hope you got this idea. This is how framework should be built. Okay, okay, and here I'm going to say like we are going to use some concatenation the and we are going to say text, that is the value. Okay, I'm going to say like the value, I mean, sorry for my spelling, the value is this value, and let's add one more string concatenation, and here I'm going to say typed typed successfully. Okay, typed, just that is fine. Okay, so the value is whatever the value you are going to get is typed successfully. The value is typed, the value is typed. Okay, we have to say something like this. Sorry for my bad English, but you got the idea, right? So the value, and what are the value you are going to get is typed. Okay, that's it. So we have written our first reusable function. Now let's go and run the second one. Okay, so it's going to be exactly same, but we know that Selenium always do the append, right? So if you go and check this input code here, we use this one, right? So it basically appended, but sometimes we don't want to append, rather we have to clear and type, right? So we have to clear and type. So here I'm going to say clear and type. Okay, and the code is going to be exactly same, only one difference. First we are going to do the clear, right? So element dot clear. Okay, and here we can change the logs, like the value is cleared and then is typed. Okay, and then is typed. Okay, that's it. So just something, if you are able to understand, that is pretty much fine. Okay, and you can use control A, control I to align the code. Okay, that's it. So we have written two functions as of now. That is fine. Okay, let's go and write one more as well. So here we are, what we are doing, we are checking the keys enabled, we are trying to read the values. Okay, um, okay, let's do that. So it's anyway it's a long video, so we can do that. Okay, so public, and we have to check the return type, right? So I mean, if it's enabled or disabled, we have to do the assert, right? So I will just say like assert, I mean, as of now we'll just return void. Actually it should be of return, I mean boolean type, and we are going to say assert is assert display. Okay, so I'm going to say assert display, or I call can also say like is displayed. Okay, so that is fine. So is displayed. Okay, and of course we should have the return type here, return, and we are going to say which element, right? So we need an element so that we can check the return type. So I'm going to say return element is displayed. Okay, so that's it, pretty much fine. And return, what is the spelling? Return URL. Yeah, so return element is displayed, and just remove this one. Yeah, okay, so this is the function. Now you might ask me, Kaushik, this is displayed function. We can, this one line we can call there itself. Why you are writing as a reusable function? Right? It makes sense, but As I said earlier, within the functions, I can write a code to take the screenshot, or I can write the code to enable the logger. So it will help me, right? If I call only like web element dot is displayed, that's going to return me only the boolean type. But instead of that, if I call like base dot is displayed, like here we have a class name like Selenium base, the object name dot is displayed, that can be help to call the actual work is displayed. Of course, it's going to return the boolean type. Other than that, I can write a code to take the screenshot. I can enable my loggers. So that is the difference between framework and using the APIs, library functions. Okay, so as of now, this is fine. Lastly, we are just going to write one more function to check whether it's read only, right? So I can copy the same here. I can copy paste and I can change this like is read only. Okay, so how do you check it's read only or not? So basically we have to get the attribute, right? So here it's like the web element, and then we have to say like get attribute of read only. So I'm going to copy this guy, and in our base class we'll say like get attribute of read only, and it should return was what? It should return as the true, right? So that will be actually returning in the format of string. So I can say like string true. I mean string is read. Okay, and then I can check, right? So if is read dot equals, you should not use double equals, it's a string, so you should use double equals, and that's going to be true in case it's true. So if I go to the console, you can see it's going to return as true, right? So if it's going to be returned true, then I'm going to say return true. Okay, else what? Else false, of course, right? So I can say else return false. That's very simple. We are done with this, right? So here you can see we are trying to get the web element in the runtime. Based on that element, we are going to read the attribute, get the attribute of read only. So if it's read only, then we'll just check like whether it's true or false. If it's true, then we'll return the true, or else we'll return the false. That's it, pretty much simple. Control A, Control I to align your code. Okay, so now we learned in the chapter 5, we learned like how to interact with the inputs, different types of inputs, and based on the same learning, we have also learned like how to create a base class. Okay, so that's it, pretty much done. I will see you in the next chapter.